So tonight is a special night, a very special night. We have a chance here to bring together two organizations that I belong to and am proud to be a part of. Um, some of you know that I'm the president. I mean, you all know I'm president of the Historical Society, but not all of you know I'm also president of the Mendon Foundation, which my predecessor is with us tonight. His name is John Farrell. John will be presenting, this is a brand new presentation that's never been done before anywhere, and that we were looking forward to having last year, and it's eagerly anticipated by folks around town. John is a former Mendon resident and an avid cyclist, and he's been a tremendous volunteer and resource for the Mendon Foundation for a very, very long time. There are a number of our board members present tonight as well, which is a little bit of a worlds collide thing for me. It's really fun to have you all together tonight. So John's going to talk tonight about a historical account of the creation of the Lehigh Valley Trail, which is a mysterious thing to many people, to get an understanding of what came together to bring the trail to life. And he's going to speak quite a bit and answer your questions. So please think about what you'd like to ask, because this is the first time you're going to get to ask it, I think, in this kind of forum. John's eager to share his experience and wisdom, and some of us will be here to help him out and answer some questions. But without further ado, welcome John Farrell, Mendon Foundation President Emeritus. Take it away, John.
Hey, thank you very much, Drew. First of all, that poster you may see behind over my shoulder, that is the Rochester City Subway. So that's what you're looking for your next meeting, and that'll be a great one. And I'll want to attend that one because I have questions about that. This is how you learn new things, right? You show up and you take part. Anyway, the name Mendon Foundation is a bit of a misnomer. You look at the demographics. Oh, Mendon Foundation, they have money and they're going to give it away. Well, that's not quite the idea of our founders, Carl Foss and the like. It was an all-volunteer organization to build up and recognize the good pieces of the history of the area, and hence the word foundation, the beginning, what was invoked. But nowadays, we just stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. Our work is based on their work, just like, and congratulations for 60 years for the Historical Society this year. Your roots go back to 61, far further than ours do. But having said all that, let me move ahead here. Carl Foss. Our DNA traces back to Carl Foss. So here's a bit of a newsletter back in the fall of 1994, shortly after the inception of our volunteer group, the Mendon Foundation. Long before the successful grant was written, there were dedicated and passionate volunteers, just like you have in the Historical Society, that, sweat and blood, builds what we have and what we see today. Well, there were volunteers that early on that got together and cleared what was the old rail bed between Route 64 and the hamlet extending over to Chamberlain Road. So that was an all-volunteer. There's Dick Joint on his tractor. Jonathan Freelander was on his tractor. Tim Sheehan was there, so on and so forth. David Foss, amongst others, in that effort that day to start revitalizing the rail corridor. So me, Drew said it, I'm a former resident. I've lived up in the city for almost 8 years now. But I loved my years in Mendon and the Honey Falls area, and still miss my neighbors and the open spaces that you still enjoy down there. I'm a big advocate and user of trails I was going to ride the Katy Trail out in Missouri from Independence to St. Charles, almost to St. Louis. I was going to do that last October and may do it this October. So trails are a real gift to a community if they realize the potential of them. And I'm a cyclist. I ride my bike on the road. I ride my bike on trails. I ride by myself. I ride with friends. And, you know, I'm a volunteer. You know, roll up your sleeves, get to work if you want to get something done. And the best way to get people to help is to work shoulder to shoulder, in my experience. So anyway, I was a director still am, for many, many years. And I had a short 8-year career in the railroad industry in the signal department. I didn't actually work for a railroad. I worked for Rail Development Group headed by Dave Donatello. That's based out in Ogden, and we remanufactured largely General Railway signal, electromechanical cast iron 1,000-pound switch machines that would switch forward and reverse to send you to Oshkosh or on to Chicago. So we bought those things, tore them all down, repaired them, and sold them with updated components. So, and I would work, and trains would go by, you know, 60 miles an hour, and we were standing 8 feet away from them. So it was a lot of fun to have a short career in the railroad industry, the likes of CSX, Canadian National, Canadian Pacific, Long Island Railroad, so on and so forth. Anyway, moving on. So this is the then and now. The foundation, the forebears: Carl Foss, Dick Dane, Bill Fletcher, Peggy Henderson, Jeannie Loberg, Mary Gerhard, Scott Taylor, and Duncan Terrell. I know Duncan has left us, so has Carl. I don't know of the others. Now our current board, your president, we share, Drew, Bud Grindle, who's nearing retirement up at Monroe Community College. Charles Wooliver is our VP. Fran Salona, our longtime secretary treasurer. Bonnie Connington, who's a scouting interface with us. Rodney Ham, Ryan Stoner of Mastone, myself, and our longest serving board member is Arlene Clough. So this is how we got there. This area, or Mendon area, was just a farming community, you know, a long wagon ride from Rochester, and the shipping that was available on the Great Lakes at that time. But in '92, the Lehigh Valley Railroad arrives, and by '93, you got service to Honeoye Falls out of Rochester Junction. The freight house that has been reconstructed is completed in the junction for wares leaving and coming to the area. It's a big deal. You know, the agrarian economy needs to ship. So it didn't last forever, as you know. But in 1950, last passenger train between Rochester and the junction ran. In '59, the last Black Diamond, which was the honeymoon train out to Niagara Falls and back, it had its last stop, and on and on. By '76, Conrail assumes operation of Lehigh Valley Railroad. There's a federal bill, the Railroad Revitalization and Regulatory Reform Act, becomes law. And in the fine print, there's funding to preserve rail corridors. That's the genesis of the Rails to Trail movement that we're happy benefactors of. Easter Sunday, '76, station burns to the ground in Rochester Junction. By '77, the ties and the rails are pulled up west of the junction. And by '81, the last train rolls through the junction. Couple of photos. Top left, that is the Junction Station house, and we are looking west. Off to your right, you see a siding, Junction Road and Plains Road going up the hill. Bottom left is the station in Mendon, and you are looking west. Off to the right, you see the burned out remains of the station a little bit and the train platform, and you are looking east. By 1980, Lehigh Valley Railroad conveys all of its 205 acres plus over to Monroe County for a whole $1. The rail trail conservancy begins in 86. By 93, the formation of the foundation gets going. Lucian Morin was the county manager. It wasn't called county executive until Jack Doyle got there. But the foundation approaches the Monroe County manager, Lucian Morin, with the proposal that the foundation basically take ownership of this new rail to trail that was, being thought of at the time. That wouldn't fly with the county. So by 95, a public-private agreement is signed in February under the new leadership of the new county exec, Jack Doyle. And what we've done is a series of 5-year contracts with the county for maintenance to the extent of our volunteer ability and our equipment. We don't do anything that's unsafe or involves a lot of digging. And when the big trees come down, the county gets a call and they come right out. They're great partners. By 95, construction begins with local volunteers, and the first grant attempt for 800 odd grand was rejected. 99, we try again. January, we get $1.2 million in the Intermodal Transportation Efficiency Act funding for trail improvements. We begin construction that year, and the contract was let to the town highway departments of Rush and Mendon, who actually laid down the two trails. One is a 10-foot equestrian trail for our horsey people, and the other is a 10-foot wide stone dust trail for walkers, joggers, bikers, and the like. But nothing for motorized vehicles, unless they've got a siren or a light bar on top, or it's a Mendon Foundation volunteer or the like. So these are the these are the early days of some clearing that predated the $1.2 million. In the middle picture there, you see construction of a picnic kiosk over in Mendon Station Park. Warren Wallace. Warren in my book, he's my inspiration. Warren in my book was the feet on the ground. Carl just fed Warren ideas. Some of them were practical, most were not. Warren was the filter that a lot of these ideas went through, and that was a good partnership between Carl and Warren. And here's a cross section. This is the engineering drawing of what the trail is, as far as drainage. 2 inches of rolled stone dust. Underneath that was a bed of cinders donated by Kodak for the underlayment underneath the stone dust. There is still a lot. There is still a lot of ballast and that type of stuff on the equestrian trail that works to the surface, and it's not the greatest surface for the equestrians, but they have Mendon Ponds Park too, so we get some equestrian traffic out towards Quaker meeting in that area by the stables off of Bullsaw Mill Road. All right. There's our highway crews from Rush and Mendon. But also very importantly, some work had to be done on the bridges, particularly the one across the Genesee to connect to what is now the Genesee Valley Greenway Trail. That's a New York State linear park. But that's not as far west as that was the terminus of our Lehigh Valley Trail for many years until we got another grant, but I'll get to that in a little bit. And there it is. We got a little over $500,000 in 2009. And that grant extended the trail from the west bank of the Genesee River over to West River Road, next to Spezio's stone quarry. Anyway, also there were funds in there to build the freight house. The county donated all the lumber. But the end of the building, the eastern end of the building, which contains two restrooms and a drinking fountain on the outside of the building, grant money was used. That professionals built that portion of the building. The other 3/4 of that building was raised by all volunteer. Now I say that Harold Joint donated the roof to us, and somebody else put the siding on them. I don't recall right now. Anyway, so we had a freight house. And then the trail was extended south into Great Bend Park, a new park for the town of Mendon off of Clover Street 65 there. And, but it required 2 new bridges. The exact same location over the Serene Creek there, Y bridges, so that trains, coming east or west or coming north or going south out of the junction could reverse direction. And there's just a engineer's drawing. George Baker was an architect that drew a lot of the buildings and kiosks for us. And this would be typical of some of George's work. Absolutely a railroad motif. So, 2012, we begin. Foundation dug, slab poured, and thanks to the county, we had plenty of materials at no cost to us. So we have 2 nice bathrooms there that are open seasonally. And it's Monroe County Parks Department, the fellows that from over at Mendon Ponds Park, that will open that in the morning early, and we'll close that, we'll lock that up in the evening. And that thing might be open by this time. There's the old freight house, top left. Of course, no windows to speak in the thing. And that is looking to the west. You see the hill, bottom of the hill there going up Plains Road and Junction Road. There's some daredevils. I don't know if we're OSHA compliant exactly in that photo, but it's too long ago. And we're raising a wall there, and there's the drinking fountains on the east end of the building. And if you haven't been inside, we have keys, and we'd be happy to. If you want to have an event there, we'd be happy to hand you the key, and you can have at it. This is the official ribbon cutting. That's me on the right, Larry Staub, Maggie Brooks, Carla Boyce. That's probably Peter Carosa's left elbow right there when we officially cut the ribbon. And it was noted at that, and John Moffat speaking, and it was noted that day that among all the county parks, we are unique because we are all volunteer. Everything else has got a line item and a budget cost to the county, except us. So that's something nice to hang your hat on. Now, here comes our boxcar. Boxcar was sitting over in Manchester, and we acquired it, and we had to hire a couple of big cranes because when you lift the boxcar up, there's nothing that attaches it other than gravity to the trucks, the wheels and axles. So with one crane, you pick the boxcar up and you set it down on a low boy trailer, and it goes a 40-mile circuitous route down through Canandaigua because of, electric wires, telephone wires, low bridges, this, that, and the other thing, instead of taking, coming over on 251, which you would in the car. And then there was a second lowboy to bring the trucks, wheels and axles over that same day. So 22 tons. Dwayne Thompson over there, Thompson Grain, he's the one who gave it to us. Thank you very much. It had three holes in the roof, which only recently got welded shut because we want to keep it dark and dry in there because we have future plans for that. But there's a lot of railroad memorabilia we'd like to put on exhibit there. Anyway, Rodney Ham and myself, Tim Schiefen, began to repair some of the rusted, and there's a lot of it, rusted spots on the roof of the boxcar. So it's an involved process, but we're gonna go for it and finish that up this year because, as I said, we want that boxcar dark and dry. So we're also searching for and are willing listeners, if anyone has any ideas or who might know a grant writer, because there's a list of improvements we'd like to make in Rochester Junction. Signage, educational signage, for one. Diane's got some great ideas as far as, the story we can tell down there. And that is likely something that'll take grant money rather than an Eagle Scout project. And here comes the 1907 flat car one day in February, I believe. We laid some more track and next to the boxcar on the west side. And we got this flat car from the folks over in industry. And this was a New York Central and also later on an Eastman Kodak piece of equipment. On the left, there it is being loaded onto a special trailer that had tracks on it over in Rush. On the right it's sitting on the tracks over in Mendon Station. But it wasn't there to begin with. We got some rail we took out from over on Lehigh Street over down in Honeoye Falls at the New York Central Produce Warehouse on Norton Street. There it is. Tim Schiefen of Cars down in West Bloomfield puts the track on his trailer, brings it up, drops it off for us, and the car moves 7 miles from industry over to our place. But because there were problems with the truck driver, the truck didn't work, and the weather warmed up. This is in February, I think. What was stable ground, so this heavy trailer, could roll the flat car onto the track that we had built. It got too muddy, so we unloaded the darn thing right onto the trail. And Ryan Stoner said, "No problem, we'll move that over onto the track for you." Well, he thought it was all going to be one piece, and as soon as he lifted that car up and saw that the trucks and wheels were all in one place, and his task became a little more complicated. But to their credit, they got it done, and there it sits. Our future plans for that would be we'd like to get some of the rust off of it, get it stabilized as far as the paint situation go. And maybe we'll put a stage on there for music in the junction. Maybe we'll have movies, something like that down there. And people with lawn chairs, could put their lawn chairs up on the platform and we could have a good old time in the junction. This is a diorama of Mendon Station Park. This is now Westminster Hall and Chapel right there, Angela's business. On the right of that is probably our newest piece of display, and that's an old baggage cart that sat behind what used to be Foggy Bottom and the hamlet, and a couple of scouts. One scout built the roof, the pavilion, and the other scout built the rebuilt the baggage cart. Now those are wooden wheels, and I had to go down to New Holland, Pennsylvania, I think it was, to buy new wooden wheels, 2 coats of primer, 3 coats of red oil paint, but that should be there for a long, long time. And the thing is, we put steel plates down and then welded the steel rimmed wheels to the plates, so we didn't have to put chain on it. So that's a nice, maybe we get a sign up on there, but the scouts will have their names on a plaque right there before much longer. Well, we had big plans for a lot more kiosks over Menin Station Park, but those have fallen by the wayside. So, but what we have done is Scout Project put up a flagpole there. We want to get a solar powered light to shine so we can have that flag. The good folks across the street will raise and lower the flag. So we're not quite done over in Mendon Station Park. Well, what hasn't been done over there is Scout Evan Schmidt by name laid some track down over there, and we need a railroad car to set down on that piece of track. So that's off in the distance sometime, but the track's still in good shape. But it's a little bit of work to find a good caboose. You can hardly find a steam engine. They were all melted down back in the day. And here's the laundry list. 2020, Preston Yates over in Rochester Junction installed a nice bicycle maintenance pedestal. He fundraised over $2,000 to put that thing down on a donated pad we got from some folks down in Lima. And it goes all the way back to 2002. So we've got 18 years worth of great Scout projects. They like the trail, we like the Scouts, whether it's a bench or a building or a speeder location. They've been great partners and continue in that mode. Here is what I was talking about. It's the ribbon cutting. It's a bike stand where you can pump up your tires. You can use wrenches or screwdrivers that are tethered to this pedestal, and it just worked out real well. And there'll be another one in a matter of 30-60 days over in Mendon Station Park, close to the kiosks, because the trail has a lot of bikers. So it's in good shape. Anyway, something that we need to do in the junction, because all of our equipment sits in a barn at the west end of the baseball fields in the hamlet of Mendon. Now, it's a great building, but it's in a bad location. That building belongs in Rochester Junction, which is kind of the midpoint and logical place to have our equipment to go west and go east, so you don't have to, commute out to the river and back. Because we're responsible for cutting grass, cleaning up down trees and brush and overhanging branches and that kind of stuff. So it's a long day when a volunteer heads out on the trail in our John Deere Gator. So we need to put up a building out in Rochester Junction. And that's something we're going to have to get after pretty quick now. As far as what lies ahead, we'd like to have the spur that runs out of Rochester Junction connect to the canal path up in Rochester, and you could take the canal path over into Henrietta and come down the Genesee Valley Greenway Trail. That'd be about a 28-mile loop for maybe a marathon, or maybe some folks who want to go out on their bike for a half a day. That would be great. Now the Monroe County Parks Department here in the last bullet here on this page, we've had face-to-face meetings with them. There's new people in place. They're good people. When the new director and his deputy showed up in Rochester Junction, we met them. It was the last park that they had visited. They hadn't been there yet, and they walked and saw the gardens that Cindy Lau is principally restoring now, Station Master's Garden and such. They were just floored. So it just speaks to the passion of what volunteers can actually accomplish when they work together. Some of our assets, 2004, we got a nice barn over in Mendon. In that barn is our John Deere Gator, a DR brush mower, our 25 horsepower Go Fast Ferris zero-turn mower. In 2011, we got a $34,500 grant for a turbocharged Kubota tractor. That tractor has a backhoe. It's got a bucket. We've got a fork, so we can drop the bucket and put a forklift on there. We've got a mower and a brush hog for that thing. So it gives us a lot of capability. Excuse me. We got a grant for development of some trails and some landscaping that we had to do when we got 44 acres donated to us in Sibleyville, the hilltop. It was going to be developed, but there was an archaeological dig there, and they found evidence of a native population having lived there at one time, arrowheads, and the like. So it was a win-win deal that we got the property from the developer, and I don't think the neighbors mind that a bit. We used to have a fundraiser, Menin Station Festival. It was a lot of work. It always rained at least one of the days. Always rained at least one of the days, and it was the same weekend as the Clothesline Festival. So we raised some money, but worked too hard for the money we did raise. But fortunately, Drew had the idea of having a half marathon and a 5K. I guess we're coming up on the 10th year for that, and it was successful from day one. About 200 runners the day one. And here's some people, and that's always in late August. And we've always had good weather, so that's something we're very grateful for. Look, there's Drew in the lead. So 2011 was our first run. In 2017, and this is not easy to get, the US ATF certifies our course, and it runs down almost, well, within, I'd say, a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile of 15A in Rush, where there's a sign that says, turn around here. So it was, it's a great addition to our bottom line, and it's our principal fundraiser, and it's well attended, very well thought of, because the footing is great on the stone path. It's largely shaded because of the canopy overhead, and it's very well staffed, and the runners who have run it say it's a fast course, which is exactly what they want. So our expectation is hopefully this year, late August, to run the event in person, so we don't have to run it virtually like we did with a surprising amount of and a very pleasing amount of success in 2020. So there it is. There's the logo. That's the Lehigh Valley Black Diamond. So this is our 10th year with that race. So to close, it's happy trails. Communities that have trails, the realtors love it because it's a real benefit. Most communities don't have what we have, and probably never will unless you had a railroad that ran through your town. Well, we did, and we made something of it. So many thanks to all the scouts and the scouts families who do so much work to support the scouts, the volunteers, the financial donors, the people with equipment and professional skills. So it's what made us successful for 29 years. You know, if there's no foundation, if there's no railroad, there's no trail. So it's been a nice combination that we were able to build something out of basically something that had been abandoned and given up on. So it's making something that's going to be around for a long, long time. And we're proud that, you know, in our role in doing that, and we're dedicated to it going forward. And, you know, thank you very much to the Historical Society for a great example of what passionate people can and do when you get organized and say, we're going to do this, and actually do it. And that's it for me.
Thank you, John. That was excellent. And if I may have the honor of the first question.
Go ahead.
You know, I was thinking back in what was the issue with the county inheriting the land from the federal government? I believe I recall that the story was that the county really didn't want to develop the trail on its own, and they wanted to hand the land off to someone like us, but they weren't able to do that, right? Because it was acquired with a federal grant or in a federal manner.
Yeah, that was it. And the lawyer said, no, otherwise it would look like a gift, and, you know, what would prevent us from, you know, selling it off to property owners? So they wanted it in public hands.
That's what I recall. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Jane Thomas has raised hand. And you're welcome to go off mute if you'd like. Everybody has the ability to go off of mute to ask a question.
Okay, the question is, I'm Mary Jane's husband, but we moved to Rochester about 12 years ago. And as of now, the only part of this trail that we're familiar with is the one from the 1.5 miles from River Road over to across the Genesee River. But can you tell us where in Mendon Rochester Junction is?
Yes, I'll be happy to tell you.
Your website doesn't show it on the map.
If you put into Google Maps 275 Plains Road, that will put you basically in the parking lot at Rochester Junction. Reverend Val from the Presbyterian Church used to live there. We knocked his mailbox down probably 3 or 4 times and put it back up. But if you Google 275 or Google Maps 275 Plains Road, it'll put you right there.
And there should be at the top of the Mendon Foundation's Lehigh Valley Trail page, there should be a map that you can download, a link of the entire trail with all the areas along its length.
Two questions. What motivated the shareholders of the Lehigh Valley corporation to give away the trails so cheaply? And number two, what have you heard? Why isn't it more popular with horse riders? I've been there numerous times and I almost never see a horse.
Well, let me address the question first. At West Bloomfield Road and Bull Summer, there's a couple of equestrian barns there. That's where you'll see the horses go east or west from there. The thing is that parking, unless you're going to start off in Mendon Station or Rochester Junction, those are good sized parking lots. So if you've got a truck and a trailer, that can be a bit of a challenge to get that parked. And a lot of those folks don't want to leave it, on the shoulder of the road. And especially since Mendon Ponds Park is so close by, a lot of time the preference is to go over to Mendon Ponds Park. And the first part of your question is, why did the Lehigh Valley Railroad let its property go so cheap? Well, they were probably bankrupt. You don't stop running trains if you're still making money. It's the trucking industry, and blame the Eisenhower and FDR for envisioning the interstate highway system that shifted the bulk or a great mass of freight onto trucks. And it's a fact that in 1976, there was double the amount of track mileage that there is today.
And just to pursue that a second, you would think, sure, they're bankrupt, but that would mean that the creditors would be even more eager to make sure that none of the assets got away, or at least that's one way of thinking about it.
Well, you understand it was taken over by Conrail, and they needed to shed excess mileage. And if you consider it, the Lehigh Valley, which more or less paralleled the existing New York Central, now CSX, was, it was just track that wasn't needed. So they actually wanted to get rid of it.
Fair enough.
I think the other thing is that the government wanted to keep that land in ownership of the government, so that at some point in time they had to redevelop it for transportation or whatever. They would have it, and so now it's owned by the county, which is
it's rail banked is the word. And in fact, I happen to know that the Finger Lakes Railroad would like to see track on some of it again.
That's right. I see a hand up from Kern Haynes. Kern, you're welcome to speak.
Okay, thank you. Great presentation. I really enjoyed it. I was just curious whether there was any possibility has been looked into about extending the trail south down into Honeoye Falls. I've kind of explored it, maybe ignoring a couple of signs, and it's certainly a wonderful section of trail down parallel to Clover Street. I don't know if there's any discussions with maybe the landowner of figuring out a way to make that accessible to the public.
Well, there's some property issues where that trail ends going to the south there through Great Bend Park, and there's a bridge was taken down. Is it north or south of Sibley Road? That an old wood bridge was taken down years ago. A lot of people wanted that, and there were meetings. Heck, the town of Lima wanted the trail to run all the way down there. But private property issues.
There was that, and the Papa Trestle over Honeoye Creek, which would have been an important component of that, of course, is down, and that creates a bit of an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that a lot of people are interested in, and there were plans for it, but it take a lot of money and planning in order to do something about it. But it's probably one of those things that will happen generations to come with good luck and money and planning.
And if some property changes hands south of where the trail ends now, things could change. But right now, it's a no-go.
Has the group looked into eminent domain by any chance?
We're not a government entity. We can't do that. And that would be extreme at this point, I would think.
Yeah, and there also there are houses built on the trail. On Monroe Street, if you look to the north there's a house that's built right on the trail. They purchased the land and built on it.
I would love to see it go down that way. And I'd love to see pictures of the old trestle too.
There's some work that Warren Wallace did on that. And I'd have to take a look at it, but I think it was an attempt to come up with some alternate ways of having a trail to go down into Honeoye Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And John, that, if that were to happen, that would require a significant amount of work with private property and other such things. It's sort of the same luck that we had with inheriting the land that goes west of the Greenway Trail. We'd need that kind of luck.
You're right. You're right.
Well, thank you very much. And if there are no other questions, I just want to thank John for doing this and also for all the work that he led in many of these efforts over the years. And just great to be able to have this. And we will have this recorded, and we do have this recorded, and hopefully we'll be able to share it on our YouTube channel and some other places for others to enjoy. So thank you so much for doing this, and I hope everybody has a wonderful night and comes to the Rochester subway meeting in person next month. Check out our website for more information, hfmhistorical.org, and our Facebook page. Thank you again, John, and good to see everybody tonight.
And
Take care.
Thanks for everybody, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Take care. Enjoy the spring. Be safe.
Have a good night, all.